Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL Draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by prospect experts here at the Hockey Writers, Peter Baracchini and Dayton Reimer. Also got a special guest here on the episode, Mark Scheig from the Hockey Writers as well. He's does a ton of stuff. You know him from mostly Columbus Blue Jackets, but Mark, you're also really into the draft stuff every year too. So welcome, and thanks for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure to join you guys.
Yeah, we do this every year. That's been the last, 3 years? I know Union Junction, we did an episode a few years ago on the preview. I don't think we've previewed the Scouting Combine since. We've done recaps afterwards, but I thought a preview is in order. We're days away from the Scouting Combine, and that's why Mark's on the show. So we've got Mark and Peter are going to be at the Scouting Combine. Andrew may pop into the episode here at some point. We'll see, but he's also going to be there. So we got some good representation at the Combine this year, as we do every year. So it's going to be fun. And that's what we're going to be doing on this episode. We're going to be doing a bit of a preview, talking a bit what to expect, stuff like that. So let's dive right in. I'll start with you, Mark, on some storylines you're going to be watching when you're there. I know you're not going to be there until the fitness testing on Friday and Saturday there, but what are you looking for at the Combine?
Looking for clarity, because the top defensemen, it's going to be interesting to see who can do what during the interview process, who could do what during the fitness testing, that maybe create a little separation. Because you look at the top 5 or 6 defensemen that could probably go in the top 10. There's a lot of debate about what the order is. So that's one of the things we're going to see, is who really impressed with the testing, with the interview process, to see, who might be able to slip into the top 3, or, maybe solidify themselves in the top 10.
Yeah, well, we've talked many times about how defense heavy this draft is, and there's going to be tons of looking at these defensemen, where they are at in their development fitness wise, right? Because you don't know, there's so many different things. We're going to talk about that in a bit here. I'll go to you, Peter. What are you going to be looking at the Combine there? Is it the same thing, or you got something else you're kind of keeping an eye on?
Yeah, it's definitely that to some extent too, because as Mark said, there's at least 5 to 6, 7 quality defenders that could go in that top 10, top 15, and it's basically a dogfight between Artem Levshunov, Sam Dickinson, Zane Parekh, Zeev Buium, Carter Yakimchuk, Anton Salayev. So for a lot of those players, it's a little bit scattered, with Dickinson being maybe top 5 to top 10, Levshunov being 2 to 7 kind of thing. It's very up in the air right now. But for me, I want to look at like some other names that are like vying for that first round spot, that have really solidified or improved their stock in sort of like the second half since, the World U18 Championships, especially since even during the playoffs as well. Their names I'm looking out for are Teddy Siga, who looked really good at that tournament, playing with some top tier players, and you saw his energy and his ability to be a factor offensively. Alphonse Frey, is he going to jump into the mix as a top defender within the first round? Same with Stein Solberg. He looked very poised and confident at the World Hockey Championship for Norway, and you could see 2 Norwegians possibly go in the top 20. That what I'm seeing right now is that Solberg has solidified his spot as maybe a top 20 pick right now. So can Lucas Pettersson hold on to his spot in that late first round part? Dean Letourneau, can he still push in or maintain that spot as well? Because I've still seen some team or some rankings have him in that 27 to 32 range. Interesting to see how it's going to play out. And also, if we're actually probably going to see a goalie in the first round. I know we don't have a top name per se, but Carter George at the U18's phenomenal. Yegorov, in the USHL, he's really popped off and he's really put his name on the map as well. We've talked about how much we liked Ryerson Leanders' play. Nicholas Kemp, who looked good for Team USA. So not sure where he would lie, but you're going to see a lot of goaltenders in probably in that second to early third, maybe in the first, depending on if a team wants to take that swing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the goaltending it's not as strong as previous years where you're definitely going to see one in the first round. We may see one sneak in. You never know, like you said, with George and a couple guys that maybe go early in the second. So yeah, fitness testing and this combine is another chance to see these guys where they're at. Dayton, I know you're not going to be at the combine, but I mean, obviously going to be watching it and taking it in as well. What are you going to be looking at as it's going on?
Well, getting some clarity between all of those like really tightly compared prospects, like the defenseman you guys mentioned, some of the top 10 forwards, like will they be able to take over from some of the defensemen? But I think the one player that I'm going to be watching the closest will be Trevor Connolly.
Yeah.
He is either, depending who you ask, a top 15 pick or a second rounder. I would fall currently on the second rounder for, a variety of reasons. But where will the NHL teams fall? And I think that is going to be really telling. There's going to be some very hard questions for him based on some things that have happened in the past and also some things that have happened this season. That penalty against the Canadians in the gold medal game was a very bad penalty. How will that affect his draft stock? I'm really interested to see where he falls after some of the questioning and after some of the testing. If he holds up his skill, which is clearly like he's a very talented player, but there are some really big question marks around him, and I would love to get some clarity on that.
For sure. Yeah, then that's where the interview process comes into it, right? And that's something we missed during the COVID year where we didn't have that interview stuff. It's a very big part of the combine, and that's where teams kind of make those questions and those fun questions that we get to see afterwards. And yeah, we'll see where he kind of goes to. Now, I'll go back to you and Mark on this next one. The combine has obviously an impact on a lot of the teams when they look at, the interviews, the fitness testing. What do you think that overall impact is after this? I mean, does it drastically boost certain players? Does it may drop them out of a certain area? How do you see that?
Matt, I think it breaks a tie when you have a couple of prospects that are real similar on someone's list. If someone interviews really well or does really well or poorly on the fitness testing, it might break a tie for them. But to say it's drastic, I would say that that's very rare. There are some guys that I know have shot up some draft boards as a result of combine performance, but overall whole, teams have scouted these guys for years, so they have a pretty good idea based on scouting, based on previous interviews. So this is just a final chance to, maybe fill in some gaps, answer a couple questions here or there, and it might affect a spot or two, but usually nothing drastic.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's more there's two players that are very similar, and you look at one interview's better, like, oh, that's the guy we're going to look at more than this other guy, right? I think that's probably where it comes from. Peter or Dane, do you have anything to add to that? Or is that where you kind of fall to?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, obviously because final rankings are happening right now. This is the last, kind of test for everybody to show their worth. And now this is more like we've seen, obviously the play aspect of it all, how like the X's and O's, can they execute well? What is their overall play style like? Now it's more of like getting to know them on a personal level and getting their character down to a T. As Dayton mentioned, someone like Trevor Connolly, this is the perfect time for him to try and show, his true value and worth. And there have been receipts that he has improved his character, but, other teams still may need to see that a little bit more. I agree that this is the final stretch of it all, and I think everything will fall into place after this. I know still last year at the combine, it was either I know Mark was still trying to decipher get between Adam Fantilli or Leo Carlson. It was either going to be one of those two, and we really didn't find out until draft day what was happening. And then we found out that Leo Carlson was going to Anaheim, and then that lo and behold, Fantilli was going 3, and then a lot of us had the reverse. Fantilli 2, Carlson 3. But again, it's like similar skill sets, but kind of like a different mentality kind of thing with the two players. So we'll see how it goes this time around. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a tighter gap between players because Celebrini separated himself and then everyone else after. It's like based on needs or wants at this point.
For sure. Dayton, you have anything to add to that?
Not a bunch. I will admit that before like this year, last year, I wasn't paying too much attention to the combine. It didn't seem to really impact a lot of the draft rankings that I was following. Like Mark suggested, like it really comes down to maybe breaking a tie, maybe moving 1 or 2 places. I think it's bigger for the guys who are lower ranked. So those guys might be kind of on the edge of making a first round pick. If they test really well, if they show that they have a lot of, character and fill a lot of boxes and they, are really likable, maybe that pushes them into the first round. Or maybe that makes them, maybe we won't worry about this guy and let someone else take him kind of thing. So they invite 100 guys. There's some that will not be second round picks in that group. So what is the dividing lines between some of those guys who are just like, that's splitting hairs at that point? You can't know that many guys. I think that's kind of where the interviews and the testing comes in. But for the top guys, the top 10, top 20, top 30, everyone knows who they're taking pretty much, and they just have a few questions that they need filled in.
Yeah, I agree with that. Being the lower guys are going to put themselves on the map more with a really good fitness testing spot part of the combine. So yeah, that's definitely a big thing there. Biggest thing we do on the website is the heights and weights. We always have we're one of the bigger, I think, resources when we put that out. Everyone goes to it. So Mark, you always put that together. What's the importance of that? I mean, it's seemingly very simple. I mean, a height and weight, but a lot of people go for it, and there could be some discrepancies when you look at what you're looking at right now in elite prospects or different places. How important are those figures?
Depends on what you're looking for. So the individual height and weight itself isn't really as important as a starting point and a comparison from what we see out published to what they weigh in at the combine without their shoes and their socks on. It kind of gives a little bit of an impression to us. Have they added muscle? What kind of work have they put in? So in that sense, it's important. So I'd say for 95% of prospects, it's pretty close to what's published. But for those 5%, sometimes it's a loss of weight as well. It really gives us a more accurate portrayal of what a particular prospect has. And you're right, there's a lot of people that do look up that resource, for one reason or another, because they want to see, are they putting in the work? That's really the biggest thing that I think that we take out. Then what I thought was interesting this year, when they released the list of invitees, they included the height and weight right on that as well. And that had some differences compared to what's been published. So that gives us a couple of comparison points this year.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to see already. And yeah, we'll see what type of differences there are between there's something drastic or just those little bits. All right, Peter, I'll start with you on the next one here. Who do you think is going to have the most to gain? I know we've mentioned a couple names already, Trevor Connolly being the biggest one, but who do you think has the most to gain through this process, the interview process, the fitness testing, all that?
I want to say whoever becomes the Chicago Blackhawks' second overall pick. That could either be Ivan Demidov or Artem Levshunov, because both players are going to be critical factors in the Connor Bedard era. And not to say that this is solely just going to be about Bedard, but you need that supporting cast. You need those other players to step up around him. You already have Kevin Korchinski in the fold this season with Bedard. Frank Nazar looked pretty good in this final stretch down the season. If you add another elite winger in Demidov, or a top tier, top pairing right shot defenseman in Artem Levshunov to, complement Kevin Korchinski, where that to me is going to be very, very telling. I know Demidov isn't going to be there because of factors, but Levshunov is going to be there, so he has that advantage right now over Demidov. But then again, who's to say that they aren't talking to Demidov, kind of like what Matvei Michkov was talking to teams with last year as well. You have to get that sense that he's probably talking to teams within that 2 to 5, 6, 7 range as well. I don't think Demidov will fall that far. He shouldn't fall that far, but I think whoever the Chicago Blackhawks pick, they got the most to gain coming into this combine, and it looks like it's going to be Artem Levshunov because he has that advantage.
Yeah, he's got a bit more of that because he is Russian too, but he played in North America here, and that's why he can go to the combine, right? Mark, what about you? Who do you think has the most to gain through the scouting combine here?
I actually have 4 names listed here. 3 of them kind of fall into the same bucket because we're talking about the injured in one way or another. So Caden Lindstrom being one, Konsta Helenius another, and Adam Juracek. I think those 3, they're going to be asked a lot about, Lindstrom and his back situation, and then the other 2 with their respective injuries. If they're able to convince a team that they're over them, they could really gain a lot in the eyes of an NHL team. And the other guy that I'll call out too, that going into the season had a lot of hype around him and still is going to be a really good player, but has seemed to have fallen some, Cole Eiserman. I think he has a lot to gain at this combine as well, if he really impresses at the different things.
Yeah, all great names there. I mean, Caden Lindstrom's a big one because he missed a lot of the season, and he's still probably going to be a top 5 pick. But yeah, this combine is going to be something to kind of maybe quell some concerns that some teams have. Dayton, finishing off with you, who do you think has the most to gain out of this?
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I think the kids who were injured for a lot of the year, Adam Juracek, Caden Lindstrom, 2 big ones. I would maybe even throw in Harrison Brunnick and Aaron Kiviharju, who missed a large chunk of the season. Even Ryder Ritchie. They did come back at the end and were all at the U18s. They all looked pretty good. Kiviharju a little bit rusty, but also all of Finland was a little bit rusty. I wonder where they will fall, because they have been all projected to be first-round picks, and now they are all, or at least the last 3 that I mentioned, Brunnick, Kiviharju, and Ritchie, are kind of on that cusp because they missed so much time. Will a strong testing quell some of those concerns, or will it reveal that maybe they need a little bit more time? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a big, especially with the injuries, and now they're all healthy. So we'll see how they kind of do in the fitness testing here, see if they are healthy. All right, finally, I'll let you guys just shout out some other names you're kind of watching when you're going to be there or on the outside, Dayton. Mark, who else are you watching at the combine?
So one guy that I think is going to be really interesting as a potential top 10 pick, depending on where all the defensemen go, Berkeley Catan is somebody that I'm really wanting to see how he does. And then we always talk about the size factor. I want to see, does he have what kind of an attitude does he have? I don't give a crap attitude. I'm going to go out and do what I do and become a potential top 10 pick. But he's the one guy that I'm really going to pay close attention to, just to see where he slots in.
I love him as a player. I know he's not gonna go to any teams because Canucks don't have one till the third round. So I'm not holding out hope any of these guys. But yeah, he's a very exciting player. I'm hoping he does go where he's supposed to because his skill level is just out of this world, right? All right, Peter, who else are you watching here?
Two on my end, and they're somewhat a little bit risers that go into my top 15, and that's Becca Seneca. First off, because he really popped off down that stretch in terms of the playoff performance. We saw how big of a playoff can have an effect on your draft positioning, and he's already vaulted himself into now a top 15 spot where maybe he was in that, 17, 18 kind of range. And now I want to see how well he does in terms of the physical strength aspect of everything, because when you see him on the ice, he can hold his own. He is very physical and in your face along the board. So I want to see that as well. The other is Michael Hage from the Chicago Steel, because of the fact that, as we mentioned, he was another player that was injured, and he did have a rough go at the end of last season, mid-season, or off-season, then coming into this one. There was a lot of factors going on in terms of his play, but he managed to progress throughout the whole entire season and produce and become a major offensive threat. So I want to see how well he could do here, as I've seen him quite a bit with the on-ice play, if that's going to help him solidify a top 15 spot, because he shot up Central Scouting's rankings, and he was doing the same thing a lot out of the public rankings as well.
Yeah, those are two good names to be watching as well. And Dayton, who else are you watching too?
Well, I'm definitely watching Catton. I think he's one of the most interesting picks heading into the top 10, because he does have a little bit of a size disadvantage, but he's got so much skill. Will that kind of affect where he falls? I'd also love to see what the thoughts are on a couple of the Swedes who are expected to be first rounders, Alphonse Frey and Elias. No, not Elias. Lucas, thank you.
Too many Elias Petterssons.
Blank. There's too many Petterssons. Yes, so Lucas Pettersson, Alphonse Frey. I'd love to know what teams think of them and how they compare to some of the North American prospects who I think are very much taking center stage this year, more so than other years. There's not really a pure dominant European forward or player really beyond Demidov and Salayev, who've attracted a lot of the attention. Hellenius, a little bit. A few other guys have kind of caught some attention, but I want to see where these two Swedes fall within that ranking.
Yeah, so lots of players to watch and lots of stuff that'll be coming out as it's going on. Peter, Mark, and Andrew are going to be there, I'm sure, tweeting throughout the event and talking about these different players they see. So keep an eye out at the Hockey Writers on all the stuff during Friday and Saturday. So lots of fun stuff coming up. So keep an eye on that. And of course, we're going to have coverage afterwards too. So Mark and Peter are going to be putting out stuff. And like I said, with the with the heights and weights coming out really quickly too. All right, so a few quick fire questions here. I got just some fun ones. Peter, I'll start with you. Who is your favorite projected first round pick right now? I mean, there's a lot of names out there, and I know I probably can pick at least one. I know it's your favorite, but who is your favorite right now?
I am going to stray away from Sam Dickinson and Caden Lindstrom, because you already know how much I love them. I'm gonna go with Stein Solberg. I thought I really like the intensity and the physicality that he brings as that kind of throwback in your face physical defender, because he will hit anything in sight. And there are a lot of teams, including the Toronto Maple Leafs, that could use that little bit of bite / snot / piss / vinegar that Brad Treliving has mentioned, and he basically falls into that category.
Yeah, he could be, like you said, a first round pick, and we'll see where he falls. Dayton, who is your favorite first round or projected first round pick right now?
Well, I kind of talked about him already, but Berkeley Catton, I think, he's just so much fun to watch, and I really hope he makes it into the top 10, and I have a sneaking suspicion that he'll fall out of it. And that's insane.
Yeah. Well, Ottawa's right in that area, so maybe getting them. Mark, what about you?
It's going to be an obvious name, but he's the second best player. He's number 2 on my personal list, Anton Saleev, for me. 6'7", kind of. I know you get the comparisons to Chera. I think the some that are saying he's as good or even better skater than Victor Hedman at this point. You want to shut down defender. You want to win a Stanley Cup. You need guys like that. I think he fits the criteria. And then, he's not going to be at the combine. Him and Demidov are both not going to be there because of the Russian factor.
Mm-hmm.
But he apparently was with graduating from school, and there was a picture of it rather than him even being at the combine too. So I think there's a character thing that tends to be a little bit appealing as well. I know it's risky with Russian prospects, but I love what I see on tape with him. Definitely one of my favorites. Second overall, only Macklin Celebrini being higher than him. That's the guy.
Yeah. He's going to be interesting to see where he gets selected too, because there's been different areas of where he's gone. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting guy to watch. All right, let's go outside of the first round. Favorite. I'll start with you, Dayton. Who's your favorite player that's not going to be drafted in the first?
Yeah, so there's a lot.
A lot of players.
Oh man. I think a lot of the goalies are going to be very interesting. Where are they going to fall? Especially Evan Gardner for the Saskatoon Blades. We talked about him before. But also Poirier, Justin Poirier, who has a massive size disadvantage. He's, I believe, listed at 5'8" or 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
But he is strong. Like that, he's built like a tank, and he takes a lot of punishment and still fires the puck like nobody else. Well, maybe Cole Eiserman's got him beat, but from what I saw, he is just such an accurate, powerful shooter that I think he's going to be a really good pickup, but he's going to be second, third round for sure.
Yeah, those definitely two great names you mentioned there. Mark, what about you? Someone that's going to be drafted out of the first that's one of your favorites.
So he could end up in the back of the first round depending on the team, but I think a lot of the industry has him second. I even have seen him in the third. But you want to sell me, you give me size at 6'3", give me a center, and give me a point a game player in their draft year who came over from Europe to play in North America. That would be Julius Miettinen in Everett. That's a guy that I like what I see there. I like the upside. I think he falls a little bit outside of the first round, but I think he could provide first round value given the toolkit that he has.
Yeah, that's one name that's definitely could be end up being in the 28 to 30 range, or right early in the second round, right? All right, who haven't I gone to? Peter, who you got as your favorite outside the first?
I've been advocating for him to be a first, as I've done in the mock drafts. That's John Mustard from the Waterloo Blackhawks. I've been a big fan of the size that he brings, the skill, the compete level, the energy that he brings. I believe he had some really good numbers. I think he was the second best scoring rookie in the USHL this season. I'll probably correct myself next week if I am wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. And I just love the pace that he brings. I think he should be a first rounder, but he'll probably be an early second.
Mm-hmm.
The second one would be Sam O'Reilly from the London Knights. Not the quickest guy, but the energy that he brings. Again, same thing, the energy, the physicality, the ability to be advantageous of where he is positionally on the ice. He's taken advantage of that, and he was one of the top scoring rookies in the OHL, playing for the Hunters. That's always going to, be a big, sticking point for everybody in the scouting world.
Yeah, another two good names there. So lots of guys to be watching as we go here. And quickly before we run out of time here, potential steals. Now, there's could be a lot of these guys too. So Peter, just a name to throw out here that could potentially be. I mean, we're not going to find out this for a long time, but potential steal.
I'm going to say Dean Latorno from St. Andrews College. Drawing comparisons to Tage Thompson, and if you could find a centerman that has that size, that shot, and the skating to go with that, he could potentially be a steal. I've seen late first, early second, but if there's a team willing to take him in the late first, that's a potential steal right there of a guy that with his shot could score 30, 40 goals potentially in his career.
There we go. Dayton, what about you?
Another guy I've already mentioned, Harrison Brunnick. He is a 6'3" right-handed defenseman who skates like anybody. He's an incredible skater. He's got a great shot, and he missed half the season with an injury. He is, well, maybe not half the season, like 20 games. It's a shorter season in the WHL. Yeah, he's really, really good, and he's being overlooked. Some of the rankings have him outside of the top 100. I think he could be on the he's ready for a breakout. He was playing on a terrible Kamloops Blazers team and asked to do everything as an 18-year-old. So I think he is definitely going to show some people that were paying attention that he was a top talent all along.
All right. And Mark, finish us off here. What steal that you're kind of looking at here?
I think the best center in the draft is going to be Hellenius. So by definition, that's a steal.
Yeah.
Not to give away my steal of the draft, but I'm leaning toward making Hellenius the guy. Too much on, just the fact that he was able to play against men, he was able to perform the way that he was. And with all the talk about everybody else, I think he's being a little underrated, even though I know that there's a lot of people that love the guy. I just think that he's being a little too underrated. And I think he's going to really rise up and become one of the biggest steals of this draft.
All right. Yeah, 3 great names. And Mark, I know you got that article coming out, that the steal of the draft. So we'll see if that's the guy. All right. Well, thanks, Mark, for coming on the show, being a guest here. And of course, thanks, Peter and Dayton, for another great discussion on prospects and talking about the Scouting Combine. Make sure to check out all our stuff at thehockeywriters.com. We got lots of draft content. We got, what'd you say, Peter? How many draft prospect profiles we got right now?
115 completed.
115 profiles. So lots of reading to do, guys. Go and take a look at all of our prospect profiles out. We got all the main guys already out and lots of other names too. So take a look at all that. But until our next episode, and Mark, you'll be back again for a recap and reaction. But until next time, we'll see you on another episode of Prospect Corner.